Hello, everybody, welcome back. And I request you to take your seats so that we can start with the next session. So, in this session, we are going to talk about the smart city vision. Now that we have had a good discussion from the last panel, and taking forward from there, we have a good you can say set of panelists and speakers who will take it further. And I invite Mr. Michael, Director of IS Communication Limited, as a moderator.
Thank you.
Yeah. And lead speaker, Mr. CSR Prabhu, Director General of National Informatics Center, is retired. Department of Electronics and Information Technology. Sir. Mr. Bipin Pradeep Kumar from Reliance Jio Infocom Limited. Yeah, thank you. Mr. Yul Lampe, Chief Executive Officer, Mobili. Mr. Shiv Kaushik, Country Manager, Kayan Technology Limited. And Mr. Tarun Kumar Bansal, Director, Research, Sagacious Research. And Mr. Gauri Shankar, Technology and Solution Architect in M2M and IoT space product. We have one space less. Take care, Gauri.
Should we all move around slightly? Okay, well, have you finished?
Oh, thank you, Michael. You take over.
Okay.
It's all yours.
Clearly, my role is to keep things going while people are coming in, and then the real people can start to speak. So, this is actually a very important session this morning, or this afternoon. We've had an excellent panel that have laid in front of us, if you like, the big picture, what this is all about. And our role is, in this panel, is to bring things down to much more nitty-gritty, practical details. The role of smart cities, and particularly how Internet of Things and machine-to-machine can fit into that whole process. So what we're going to have is a keynote speech by Mr. CSR Prabhu, who will give us, kind of set the scene and the big picture stuff around the practical details, and then each of the panelists have a particular aspect that they'll be focusing on. And the key thing about this is all just to get you thinking, so that then you can ask the kind of insightful questions that will really help the panelists and all of us to think around some of these issues in more detail. So this is an important session. I just have the chance to say a few moments, and I want to talk a little bit about standards, because that's one of the key subjects of this session. Smart city standards. Now, the question is, what are standards? A lot of people have a misapprehension of what standards are. The first thing that's important to say is standards are not regulation. Standards are voluntary by themselves. They're voluntary agreements that people have developed by consensus and are used to help things work better. Sometimes government, in its wisdom, feels that it's worth making those standards mandatory in order to help move the market forward. But that's not the essence of standards. Standards can be and often are most effective when they're voluntary. But standards are very important. There are two things about standards. Standards are a way of bringing together good practice in a clear and concise way, and an ambiguous way, so that we know what good practice is and how we can follow it. And that's very helpful, particularly in smart cities. Lots of really exciting things are being learnt by different cities around India and around the world. We don't know about them. There's case studies, there's general ideas and so on. It's often difficult to work out what really are the key lessons that we need to learn. And so a great thing about standards is it helps to bring the lessons that are being learned, and that's what standards as they develop within India around smart cities, what are the key lessons that are being learned, put in a way that makes it very easy to know how to follow them. And the other thing about standards is that standards bring certainty. Where there's a standard, I know if I'm building a product, I know what that product has to comply with. It makes it very easy and very clear for me to make it safe, to make it acceptable. There's some clear definitions, and providing I comply with those, then I can be sure, whatever other value add I put into it, I can be sure that my product or my service will be acceptable. But the other thing that it does is when you have standards, you can be quite sure that the next bit of the value chain, you know exactly how to link into it, because you can be quite sure what that's going to be and what the thing after that's going to be. So what it does, it allows you to put together, patch together a whole set of products and services which work seamlessly to deliver what the customer needs. So standards are vitally important, and when we're thinking of smart city standards, we have this idea really that if you like, this is the box of standards, and there are many more, but we can talk about 3 levels of standards: technology, process, and strategic. Now, we think about machine to machine and we think about Internet of Things. Clearly there are lots of technical standards that we need to get right. Data, transfer, formats, electronics, to making sure that all the different bits of the value chain, platforms, all of these things, that they work well together. So there's a lot of technical work of standards that need, and it's fantastic, lots of that is going on already. But in order to make sure these things are practical, you also need process standards. In a city, wouldn't it be ridiculous if lots of different government departments and other bodies started putting sensors here, there, everywhere, at random almost, just to meet the needs of their own particular company or department or whatever? It's much more effective if there's some way of managing the rollout of sensors in the city that allows a consistent picture of where everything is, that allows, where possible, you don't need several companies putting sensors that are measuring the same thing, but ways of sharing that information in a reliable, secure way, and where you can have proper agreements about maintenance, installation, maintenance, and all of those things to ensure that it's done most effectively, and where you can allow sharing, most importantly, easy sharing of that information. So there's lots of process standards that need to be put in place to ensure that all the technical work that you guys are doing to get the technical stuff right can actually result in genuinely useful products and services being put into use within the city. And then at the top level, this is also very important, because the strategic level, what is the use of cities getting lots of very useful information from all the sensors and other pieces of equipment and so on that are out there in the city, data being collected, or appliances and things talking to each other and enabling systems to work better because of that, if that doesn't affect the way the city works. The whole point is that these different ways of gaining more information, of allowing systems to work in a smarter and more automatic way, only really can have an impact if those in charge of how the city works understands that now they can start to make evidence-based decisions because they got much better access to information. Now they can allow, place much more reliance on the systems that work because of all the automatic processes that are in place, and they can focus on other things. So there's a big transformational strategic set of standards and guidance that needs to be put in place before cities can really understand and use these standards. So the process definitely means all of us working together to make sure that all of these standards are built and that they all fit nicely together. The other thing to say, and this is really important, is that when we're talking about smart city standards, we're not saying this is a smart city and defining exactly what a smart city is. Standards are about building blocks. Standards are about finding out what different things you need to agree and get right that allows cities to say, well, what do we need? We need 3 of these. We need 2 of those. We need to fit those things together in this way. So that it allows a city which is a religious city like Varanasi to put together sets of standards and standardized products and services that are right for that city, that will work well together, that will ensure that Varanasi continues to keep its own unique, distinct character, but allows it to be as smart as it can be and benefiting from all the experience and learning everybody else has got. And so the challenge in terms of standards is how we can design them in such a way that they make it really easy for the different sorts of cities there are to patch together the right set of products and services for them, and also in the right order, because different cities, even if they're similar, may have different priorities or different roadmaps to get there. So that's a really key thing and a key challenge for all of us. And that's an important thing to help us all to relax about. There's no sense in which we're trying to standardize cities. What we're trying to do is to standardize the services and the bits that make up the city so that cities can much more quickly and easily move forward in the way that makes sense for them. And then one other final comment to make about standards is that the challenge around smart cities is that everything is moving really fast. This is not a mature market. Nobody quite knows what works and what doesn't work. And standards don't just fall out of the sky suddenly from nowhere. So the process that we need to do globally, but also here in India, and it's something I really, really hope can be done here, because this could have such impact really, is a process where as you get 100 smart cities, each unique, each choosing their own most effective way of going forward, but a way of finding out how can you help really start to share that good practice, how can you start to compare what works in one with the other, which means you've got to start to, in some way, standardize at least how you describe these different things, so that you can actually say, well, there's 20 cities that are all focusing on congestion under certain issues, and you define the problem in some kind of a consistent way, and then you can start to get some evidence as to which of those different approaches works best, and also about how you can start to improve and get better at these different approaches. And that process, I mean, this is the whole point. The kind of mindset of standards-making organisations, and it's great we've got some standards-making organisations here. The process, their mindset is about looking for that, looking at what works, what lessons are there, what could really help to make things be improved. And if you've got that opportunity, as all of these different cities are busy working through their own issues, of an objective outside voice that can come within each of them, can get the lessons that they're being learnt, can start to share them, can start to say, how about this for you, what do you think, and start to test things out. What you'll get is a process by which slowly over a year, 2 years, 3 years, you can start to refine these things, and they can become guidelines, they can become more and more clear and helpful, and eventually they can become standards. And we need to have that kind of dynamic process to help ensure that as quickly as possible, the good lessons that are going to be learned over these next few years, already have been learned, but are going to continue to be learned over the next few years, can be quickly taken on board and implemented so that, Indian smart cities can move forward and really show the world what can be done. So this is about some of the practical and challenging issues that we have to face. But here we've got people much cleverer than I am and more experienced than I am at this whole issue. Many of you are the same. So we're going to have an opportunity now. Mr. C.S.R. Prabhu will come first and give us a good overview of the situation, and then we'll have a chance to hear from our panellists. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Let me give you a little background of this presentation which I am giving to you. This was supposed to be given to the Minister of ICT and Panchayat Raj, Mr. KTR, the Yuvraj of Telangana for Hyderabad. Well, a lot of hype as usual. We have the Gartner hype cycle, a lot of hype on smart cities. So what exactly is a smart city? It has a different variety of perspectives. In fact, there's a lady called Karuna Gopal who is a regional planner who is supposed to be the maverick expert on smart cities. She knows nothing about ICT, but she is the expert on smart cities. Then I am an ICT man, and I think smart city is an ICT concept. Yes. So I think different people look at it in different ways. So basically, I mean, a man like Chandrababu Naidu or even KCR or KTR will look at it as an investment planning government take. So what exactly? As you know, the blind man and the elephant. Everybody describes the elephant as different parts. So investment in ICT infrastructure, roads and buildings infrastructure. If you say a city smart, it's very high tech but doesn't have good roads and doesn't have water and doesn't have drainage, then there's no use. So basic smartness comes from the fundamentals of city infrastructure, roads, buildings. In economic development through employment generation is the ultimate objective. If the city is smart and if it doesn't generate employment, doesn't improve the economic development, there is no point. And efficiency achieved intelligent management, ICT deployment and citizen participation. So citizen participation and feedback in the policy formulations, in the planning, execution of the city programs. I was a committee member of the Hyderabad City Development Program. It was done for many years. Basically, you can say there are 6 dimensions of a smart city. You know, we have in data warehousing a multi-dimensional view. Like he showed a cube, your cube for example. If you see this cube, he showed first this way. I thought then all of you may think this is the true cube, but when you turn this way, it will be a different cube. And it turns this way, different cube, and this way it will be a different cube, and this will be different cube. So this is called the multi-dimensional view, and this is used in what is called the star schema in data warehouse. So 6 dimensions are there minimum. One is regional competitiveness, transportation, and ICT infrastructure. I mean, I should not have combined both. I could have made them 2 separate. And then the natural resources, which are also national resources, and human resources, social capital that includes education, social development. Of course, ultimately it's the quality of life and participation of the citizens. So innovation in ICT applications for solving problems and improving capacity. Let us look at this. This is not a new concept. It has been there. We developed a project called Smart Nagar Palika way back 10 years ago, 15 years ago in Pune, in Andhra. We have done it in Maharashtra. We have done it all over the country. We have done the computerization of the municipalities. Bombay Municipality Corporation is computerized. So that is also smartness, definitely. Without that, that's what somebody is referring as database. It definitely, we have not just a database, we have a lot more. We have about 25 modules. We have property tax, we have birth and death, we have layout permissions and everything automated. It's all going on. So the smart cities are already there for the last 15 years in that sense, the first point. Then the innovations based on the ICT for overcoming those problems from the software angle have already been there. In fact, the Ministry of Urban Development has sponsored a number of projects in ICT implementation of e-Nagar Palika, Smart Nagar Palika, etc. And then we have the JNURM, Urban Renewal Mission. And the wired wireless connectivity is something which has been missing, which is coming up in its own way. Somebody talked in the morning of government providing the OFC to every house. That doesn't happen so easily in India. It has happened in Singapore, but not in India. So in India, it is only the private sector which does it. The beam cable, for example, they give you cable to every house. You just subscribe it for a small amount. And nowadays, of course, we have Wi-Fi in every house. And innovations and incubation centers to be set up. If you take Hyderabad, we have the high-tech city, you all know. And then we have the innovation hub, which is very close to high-tech city, the IIIT. So that's why the innovation hub has been set up. The IIIT is the core brain power of the Hyderabad city and Telangana right now. And the innovation incubation centers, not just in top elite institutions like IIITs, of course IITs already have. IIT Bombay has a very big innovation center. IIT Madras has. But even every engineering college should have an innovation center. That is the new vision. This is all part of smartness. And skilled manpower will attract more skilled manpower and generate more employment. In fact, we have a proverb in Andhra, from Amlapuram to Amirpet to America. There's a place called Amirpet where all institutions are there which train on all possible platforms on earth. You call it SAP, SAS, Oracle, you name it, it's there for a very affordable price. So people come from down villages and towns and go to Amirpet, learn all this, then land up in their destination, America. So what is the characteristic? In fact, more than 30% of the NRIs in the US are Telugu speaking, and the Silicon Valley dominates Telugu speaking. So, of course, both states, Telangana and Andhra, I don't distinguish. We all know what, you know what the word Telangana actually means in Persian? The place where Telugu is spoken. And so the whole of Andhra Pradesh is Telugu spoken, and much of Tamil Nadu is Telugu spoken, and much of Karnataka is Telugu spoken. So the whole thing is Telangana, okay? So utilization of network infrastructure for enabling social, cultural and urban development, that is the core smartness. If you provide adequate infrastructure, bandwidth basically, finally it boils down to business units, residential units, lifestyle services, mobile-based services, broadband. Nobody needs to tell how to develop mobile technologies. They develop on their own. You close your eyes, meditate, automatically technologies will develop. And nobody needs to tell internet-based services, broadband-based services, wireless connectivity with high-speed broadband is a main source of growth. You all know that if you have, United Nations e-governance survey of 2012 showed that if you have e-governance and ICT, then your GDP grows up by 2%. To that extent. In fact, those countries which were suffering from recession, they wanted to pull up their economy with the help of e-governance and ICT. Can you believe this? And India already had 8% and 9% and so on, and doesn't care about pulling it up. But there are so many countries in Europe which totally depended on ICT and e-governance to pull up their economy, bootstrap it upwards. So the critical role of high-tech and knowledge creative centers for urban growth, software infrastructure creation. As you all know, the high-tech city, you all must have gone to Hyderabad and seen the high-tech city building. That is the kind of infrastructure we're talking about, software infrastructure. Knowledge networks. Knowledge networks are yet to come up for the rural areas. Traditional knowledge networks have not come up. In fact, all the social networks, they don't work in the rural areas because they are English-based. Social networks are all meant for youth in cities, not for the villages. So we need a new social network environment which works in local languages, preferably with speech interface. You know, you have the Google Specs, he's having it right now. You don't have to write anything, you just speak. That kind of a thing we allow for Indian languages and in the villages. That will work. And creative skilled workforce to be attracted on creating competent environment and leveraging ICT for increasing local prosperity and competitiveness. I'll give you an example. We launched a project called ePanchayat. You all must have heard of it long back. It's a great success now. We had many awards. There's a place called Pochampalli where we launched first in the country. So in that place, they have leveraged it to their main trade, which is weaving. They make fantastic sarees of patented designs. So now they have set up a website for e-commerce. So 30% of their orders come globally through e-commerce website in a village. So if this can be done in all villages, villages will transform. So that's the most important thing. I have a 3-point formula for village transformation. First, you provide the infrastructure. Second, you create economic activities. And third, you market those products which come out of the economic activities. That's it. All villages will be developed. And we don't need cities to contribute to the economy of the country. It is the villages which actually contribute. Because cities contribute a lot to the pollution of this country. It is the economy. In fact, it is all the defective economic model. After Gandhiji's death, Gandhiji's ideologies were happily and carefully abandoned. Therefore, the cities were given importance and not in the villages. So people moved from villages to cities. So it created double trouble. Previously, we had poverty only in the villages, but now we have poverty both in cities and villages. We have slums in the, they are called slum development programs and so on. So urban development is to be achieved through employment, is to be achieved through business development, greater incomes of the people with greater activities of the companies, creating business-friendly city environment. The reason why Hyderabad became at one point of time the IT hub of the country, much more than Delhi, much more than Bombay, was because it was in competition with Bangalore. And Bangalore is still #1 in software. And Hyderabad lost its number 2 position. Now Pune and Chennai and Gurgaon and so on have come up, if you call Gurgaon Delhi. So business-oriented cities resulting in economic development. Gurgaon is the top example. So local intelligence capacity to be developed. These are all part of smartness. Knowledge-based economy. Is today's economy knowledge-based in spite of all the jazz and hype we make? It is not. Collective community intelligence with innovation at central theme. Intelligent cities. We are not talking of smart cities, we are talking of intelligent cities. We are talking of intelligent communities as a vision. Clusters, districts and multi-cluster territories. There is a concept of rural clusters where the industrial hubs will be set up. And similarly, urban clusters. By developing sector-based, cluster-based intelligent city strategies. Each one of these topics can be a theme for a session. Each one of them can produce 10, 15, 20 papers. It has not been done. That's why this is a broad vision. And finally, innovation is in the center of all this. And if every city becomes a center of innovation, it's a smart city. Otherwise not. Approach to exclusive and sustainable growth. Smart city has a community that has learned how to learn, adopt and innovate. I wrote 7 books in IT. My last book was knowledge management. So where I defined what is knowledge and what is intelligence and what is wisdom. You all know that from data we went to information, from information we went to knowledge, from knowledge we are going to wisdom. So strong focus on social inclusion and various sections of the city in growth participation. This is very most important point. In any city you have the elites like in Gurgaon who have everything. But then the rest of Old Delhi and East Delhi and so on will remain as it is. So inclusiveness is something which is very, very difficult. And so also the caste inclusion and the tribes inclusion and the language inclusion. Social sustainability can be achieved through e-participation of citizens. And do you really think all our social systems or political systems are smart or reliable? Because is there any real citizen participation? Is there e-participation? Absolutely none. In fact, e-governance in the whole world means citizen participation in the policy formulation. Has it been happening in India? No. Once the elections are over, it's all done. For the next 5 years, citizens are to be forgotten. Citizens have no role. Am I right? So, environmental sustainability through renewable cycles of consumption and production. This is something far away to reach. Environmental sustenance has become a very big elusive goal due to greater and greater pollution. So, renewable energy cycles in cities to reduce pollution. You remember we had this CNG introduced into Delhi thanks to the Supreme Court. And unfortunately, there is no such Supreme Court order in any other city of the country. So CNG is not required in any other city and people can go and choke and die. There is no problem in every other city. So wireless sensor networks are the core of smart cities. In Hyderabad, we have cameras in most of the junctions and they are meant for catching the traffic violations, nothing more. But that's not the point. We need a lot more wireless sensor networks, intelligent sensor nodes to measure parameters like pollution, radiation, noise, in addition to traffic, of course. Data delivered in real time to citizens and authorities for necessary action, because nobody bothers what happens where. So if you have sensor networks and if they are monitored by a control room, then it can become an intelligent activity to take action on time, real-time action. In analytics, business analytics, we have now what is called real-time analytics and stream analytics. As the data arrives in stream, it is analyzed instantaneously. Otherwise, the good old thing, they have a data warehouse, perform online analytical processing for a long period of time. That doesn't work anymore. When you have sensor networks, you continuously analyze the data as and when it comes and take a decision instantaneously, and the decision has to be implemented. So, for example, you take simple things like water leakages. There will be so many leakages in water and drainage in the city which cause terrible problems, either loss of water or terrible stink and accidents and terrible unhygienic circumstances. If it can be real-time monitored by sensor networks and action is taken immediately, that will be a great achievement. Similarly, water being wasted in the parks and gardens and waste bins. In fact, it's so surprising that in many cities we don't have water at homes, but we have a lot of water in the parks and gardens. So waste bins and waste collection point. Many cities are famous. Our Swachh Bharat campaign has come only for one reason, and that is due to terrible wastage being around here. But unfortunately, somebody wrote, I think India Today wrote, today I read, Swachh Bharat has limited itself to Delhi in the recent elections. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Cleaning. So individual sensor owner can register and connect through devices to feed data into online database for storage access of experts to the database, so that has to enable him to build their own applications. So the data has to be open. When this data which is compiled by real-time sensor networks, if it is made open to any private company or NGO in addition to the government, they can do analysis, they can come out with suggestions or decisions. And open data initiatives come into the picture. NIC had an open data initiative, as you know. We have 1500 data sets which are open to the public from the government ministry, but that's only central government. But it's not there. We are talking about the city government here, municipalities and the corporations. So we had so much of hype. What is the realistic truth? The truth is that, in fact, my son keeps on saying truth is different from fact. So we are talking of facts. If you are talking of facts, so Singapore is a smart city declared, and Rio de Janeiro and Songdo and Rocasso. No other city in the world has been confirmed as a smart city, I was told. I'm not very sure about this. Smart and effective traffic management with GPS and traffic radio channel. This is already happening in some places. And smart and effective emergency management. This doesn't happen. If some accident happens somewhere in the city, how long will it take for the police or the ambulance to come there? Meanwhile, the fellow may die. Or it's only the local people who help him to take to the hospital. But it should be much more responsive and fast. And smart and effective emergency traffic crime surveillance. This is also something that doesn't happen in India. Smart and effective vehicle tracking through RFID. RFID is a big potential which has not been tapped. One experiment was done in Hyderabad for parking of the vehicles, but it's very small scale. Large scale, I think in Chennai they are doing now RFID, municipalities are doing RFID application for the dust bins, wastage bins. And smart city with comprehensive Wi-Fi, LTE, 4G clusters. Of course, Hyderabad was attempted to make whole city 4G, but it has not happened. Is a long way to go. And whole city Wi-Fi not happened. At least if all parks and all schools and all colleges are done, that's a great achievement. So wireless sensor networks, GPS, CCTV cameras to be set up in all roads and junctions to cover all traffic in all parts of the city. Comprehensive online surveillance of all traffic from police control room. Demand-driven traffic control, regulation and diversion. This is a big problem. A lot of people in Bangalore must have understood earlier that they will miss their flight. That's almost sure that they'll miss their flight once they enter the traffic. That's why they constructed an airport very far away without traffic jams. But it is taking a long time to reach the airport. Whereas Hyderabad was much better planned. If you look at the comparison with Bangalore also, in competition with Bangalore, Hyderabad was planned during Chandrababu Naidu's time with the 4-lane roads and flyovers in a much bigger way, and we don't have that much of jam problem. But even then, when traffic is too high, there will be a lot of problem. So demand-driven traffic control, regulation and diversion. And this is to be done by the police or through the radio channel. Right now, there is no such, only it is a voluntary radio channel. I think Radio Mirchi does that. Radio Mirchi tells in this road, traffic jam is there, go in other road and so on. Is that the job of Radio Mirchi to do? It is the traffic police who have to do that. So congestion pricing and management. I hope you all know what is congestion pricing. Congestion pricing is when there is a congestion in a particular route, they will be allowed to go through the paid less intense, less traffic paths, which will be paid. That's called congestion pricing. And management, alternative freeways to be provided on chargeable basis. Highway or toll automated smart card. It is there in New York City, New Jersey, you can see this, but not in India that much. So 24/7 emergency and accident surveillance of all traffic on roads and junctions through wireless sensor devices and CCTV cameras with GPS, followed by immediate rescue operations. We have what is called EMRI 108, this is 911 of US, through the police department. This is only proposed. Of course, EMRI is already there for many years. It is now taken over by GVK. So 24/7 traffic crime surveillance through wireless sensor and CCTV cameras through police department. RFID technology, applications to be deployed for all vehicles. Every vehicle should have an RFID tag. RFID is a very great potential which is not yet tapped in India. And for example, if you take even our luggage in the airports, I just came in the morning, I'm going in the evening. If I have the RFID tag on my luggage, when I'm standing on belt, I'll get a beep in my mobile that your bag has arrived. Instead of going on watching every bag which comes as if it's the idol of God, I'm doing darshan for all the bags. And many bags are similar. Quite often people take some other bag. So RFID is a simple application. So all houses to be given broadband. Singapore has this. All parks, banks, hotels, lawns, tourist spots, roads to be covered by Wi-Fi clusters and LTE. It has not yet happened. It can happen. And we have this what are called the Mi Seva Kendras, which are 7,000 in AP, undivided AP. In Hyderabad, there may be about 2,000 or maybe 1,500. And they can be given broadband internet connection, which is not there. That's why their performance is poor. Now, coming to the portal, there's also a portal service called Mi Seva. Mi Seva means Aapka Seva. That's all it doesn't mean. So, Mi Seva is a most advanced value-added service in the country because it gives digitally signed certificates to you. No other state has this advanced facility. And municipality services to be accessible on internet portal, and metro rail integration with railway stations and bus stands has not yet happened. Metro rail got stuck up in between. It is going on. It will ultimately happen, that the integration with the railways and metro rail. So I'll close before by talking about the smart village concept also. We have adopted one village, a backward village near Hyderabad, where we are setting up sensors for the water and moisture and the wind velocity and temperature. And they feed the data to a central server, and there's also a quadcopter which goes around and gathers the sensors. And then somebody can monitor and accordingly take decisions and automatic switch off the irrigation pumps based on the moisture levels. And I've seen another smart village concept where a quadcopter goes around and cuts the mangoes and brings back and give one to each delegate in this conference. And then so this kind of smart city concepts have come. We have seen many models. Smart village concept rather. A smart village starts with a smart farm. Like a smart city starts with a smart building. Smart village, smart farm, smart dairy, then smart village. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you. What a fantastic walkthrough of the key issues, the key infrastructures, and the benefits that there are, and a few laughs along the way. Fantastic. So we've now got the rest of our esteemed panel coming up. First of all, Mr. Bipin Pradeep Kumar. And I'm not going to go into the details of this because we need to move things along. Time is running. So I'll just hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me. So I had the thing of making the presentation this morning. So the good part about that is it's just 6 slides long. So I have the privilege of being part of 2 phenomenal organizations, Reliance Jio and TSDSI, on a purely voluntary basis. I'm going to, yes. So I know we're going to talk about nitty-gritties, but before we talk about nitty-gritties, I'm going to ask you to recall your history and anthropology, if wherever possible, and then ask you to dream. So history, most civilizations in history have established hallmarks for urban planning and architecture. Most civilizations. If you look at Harappa, the most striking feature of the Harappan civilization was their sanitary system and drainages. If you look at the Mayas, they were heavily influenced. The architecture and urban planning was heavily influenced by astronomy, cosmology, and geomancy. Similarly, the Egyptians and the Teotihuacans. So all of these civilizations left their marks on urban planning. And all of them had their legacies put forward, representing the best of knowledge, the methods and tools that they had. And it was also characteristic of the society they lived in. We are an information society, right? I mean, anybody want to debate that? We are an information society. And the way we use information characterizes the society that we live in, right? We are no more an emerging information society. We are well past the threshold of emergence. We are a mature information society. Everybody's been talking about IoT and sensors and M2M and all of that. But all of this gathering data, all of this gathering information, the analytics, the the platforms that are there, the dynamic systems that is possible, the automation. We are constantly redefining how the information world, that is the cyber world, actually influences or meets the digital world in what I call a cyber-physical metamorphosis of cities. I believe, I mean, without being too strong, that this cyber-physical metamorphosis of cities will be the hallmark of our society. It is in some way our legacy. It may be our legacy. So having said that and asking you to dream about our legacy, let me go to nitty-gritties. I'll try to use two of my very recent observations and interactions to illustrate the rest of it. I was at an event in Bombay recently with the urban planners. And well, of course, there was a lot of audience, and the urban planners were phenomenal in what they understood about local issues. They knew about being Mumbai. They knew about Mumbai traffic issues. A lot of people here have spoken about traffic issues. They knew about Mumbai traffic issues. They knew about water problems in Mumbai. Mumbai fortunately doesn't have much of electricity problems. They knew all of that. They knew Dharavi's issues. They knew all of that. But as urban planners, this is what I call the micro knowledge. But as urban planners, if they could step up, and I'm not saying all urban planners don't step up and all of that, but if as urban planners they could actually step up and relate it to other issues in terms of how this traffic actually affects a larger portion of society, how this traffic actually affects the GDP or the current account deficit. This is the macro issue. I mean, a recent study, people spoke about, I'm a Bangalore boy, by the way. A recent study pointed out that because of traffic in Bangalore, the IT folks lose out $6.5 billion. This is a study that's available online. You can look it up. $6.5 billion a year. Now, if you relate that $6.5 billion a year lost out to the IT, it's one city, one domain, one industry. If you relate that to, our current account deficit, our current account deficit is 2.1% of our GDP. Our GDP is 1.8 trillion right now, and I just checked that with Nigel some time back. It's 1.8 trillion. It's 6.5 billion is 0.033% perhaps, but it is an impact. It is a micro impact. It is a small city. I mean, if you take it, Bangalore as a small city, it's a mega city in that sense. That has an impact on the rest of India, on all of us. If we can actually bridge this micro-macro conundrum, as I call it, it sets off what everybody else can relate to. One city's issues is not that city's alone. It affects everybody else in India. It is our GDP. I mean, we could have got oil less. In fact, our oil bill, as I put it, is, our oil import is $85 billion. Come on, 6.5 billion is roughly 7% of that. It affects all of us. It's not just one city. It's not just Bangalore's traffic problems. It affects all of us, right? I mean, this is something that I'd like to impose on everybody. The next, being part of TSDSI and all of that, and I was at a pre-tender qualification event for a greenfield smart city earlier this month. And another high-level think tank, everybody talking about this is what we need to do, and it's a greenfield smart city, right? I mean, traditionally what we are used to in India and pretty much most other parts of the world is every industry, every department, sorry, not every industry, every department, every city, and every utility setting up their own systems and infrastructure for providing services, right? So today, if the public sector, if the power thing wants to set up infrastructure, yes, they put out a tender. Now, all this tender, I mean, this cost it's our money that's going, right? So all of this, it's not just verticalization of the systems, but it's also the non-sharing of information. This verticalization needs to stop. I'll give you an example. In this M2M world, I mean, everybody's talking about smart meters for power and water. If you put in smart meters for power in an isolated siloed approach, right, there is the smart meter detecting that there is so much of power consumption happening from electricity. And there's another smart meter detecting there is so much of water flow happening. So these are siloed systems. But if at all you had an integrated system, you have, let's say the water meter detects that there's absolutely, if the power meter detects that there's absolutely no consumption of power. But at the same time, if your water meter detects that there's a huge flow of water, these two systems, if they could talk, then they could actually know that there is the probability of a leak, which otherwise cannot happen in an isolated system. So systems need to be integrated. I mean, even if you don't integrate systems, maybe you could have a common ontology, a common semantics for system to talk about, right? And this is what at TSI we've been, there's this draft paper that is going on. We're telling people that, look at this, have proposed the idea of common information, common network, possibly common semantics, common ontology. Think about it. It's our money. We don't need to put in systems that every department takes and then it remains underutilized at best. So this is what I will stop with and ask you all to, well, not just dream, but also understand the macro issues and the problems with the way we are trying to implement greenfield cities and how we are going ahead.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. So good to start with history. The reminder that this is not about destroying history, but actually preserving the values that we've got and some of the ways of seeing how transformation can help make that happen. So thank you very much. The next one is Mr. Jure Lampe. Let's have a big hand.
Hello. Well, now I have a problem because everything I prepared, it was already said. So we heard everything about standardization, we heard everything about technology, we heard everything about government issues, but nothing about users, for example. So I decided to leave my presentation here in my pocket, and let's try to find out what is a reality here and how we deal with reality in Slovenia. Different part of world, same problems. So first, something about me. I'm the CEO of one geek family or company. We are dealing with mobile health, smartphone applications for that. We have a lot of health applications around the world, a lot of student applications which are using our smartphone platform to learn, etc., etc., etc. And of course, I'm proud of it. And once I came to my mother's home, and of course, first question was, son, are you hungry? Of course, I'm hungry. It's a common question and common answer. And after that, she simply asked me, what are you doing now? And I said, look, we just finished our measurement of 100 patients in UK. We collected 100 terabytes of data in 9 months using simply mobile channel, and she was just blank, no expression. I said, okay, something's wrong. What else did you do? I said, well, we measure ski jumpers. You know, in India you have a very strange sport called cricket. I don't understand it. But probably there is some logic in the background. But in Slovenia we have ski jumpers. You know, crazy guys coming up to hill, put skis and jump around 250 meters. And I said, yes, look, we put sensors on them and we measure them through Bluetooth, because Bluetooth is a wireless protocol, to 350 meters. It's achievement. It's really good. And blank expression. I said, okay. What can I tell you that you will understand? And she said, tell me about my own problems. I said, okay, let's talk about smart cities. That was a problem. And I started with sensors and protocols and 2.4 communication and fiber from everything to everything. And she said, yes, what's here for me? I said, sorry, you know, it will improve your quality of life. Oh, she said, quality of life, that's good. So where is my quality of life? And I start again with sensors, etc., protocol, and she said, I don't understand that. So that was my, let's say, aha moment. I said, if I cannot tell someone what I'm doing in simple way, probably I do not understand the problem. So let's start from beginning. I said, okay, you have waste management in our city. Ljubljana is so-called smart city. We have fiber, we have LED lighting, we have waste management, we have buses with RFIDs, we have kids knowing where bus is coming, etc., etc., etc. Look, it will improve your waste management. And she said, well, I put 1 point of waste once per day. I don't need that. And so that's the problem we are dealing here. We are all technicians here. So how to make users to believe in our work? Without users, smart city is just a city. Without technology also, but we are strictly tied on technology, not on users. So I said, okay, look, you have that RFID card. Yes, I have it. You use it for bus. Yes, I use it for bus. Okay, but in Ljubljana, because it's a small city, we always use a car or bicycle or we walk. We have buses, but we don't use it a lot of buses. But before 2 years, we got the RFID cards for that. And it was much, much simpler. And because it was much, much simpler, the use of buses went up to 40% in 2 years. So if the buses went up for 40% for 2 years and the population is same, so we were used less cars. So that's the thing the ordinary user will understand. Another thinking, I said, okay, look, mom, I have a sensor for you. It will measure your ECG, heart rate, posture, activity, fall detection, whatever. And she said, I don't wish to use that. Because that smartphone you show to me, it's so complicated. It has very small letters. I cannot read that. So that was the reason that we changed our paradigm in everything. And we switched from technology company, which are dealing with smart cities and smart whatever, to user-friendly technology company disguised. Because we are still IT company, but we cannot say that we are IT company, disguised as for users. And now my mom is using senior's phone. That's our phone with sensors and everything. And I know where she is and what she's doing and where the lunch will be first served and something like that. But it's for users. So smart cities are not only smart based on technology, but improving quality of life. And we all need to remember that because that's the way how we will succeed. And from Indian part of perspective, for me it's the same. I listened yesterday about startups, and I found out same soup, different cook, but very same chicken soup. So wherever you go, we have the same problems, and we can learn from each other. But first and most point on the top of our presentation should be user, not technology. Thank you.
And what an important reminder that that's really what we're all about here. It's not technology for its own sake, it's actually about the quality of life and making sure we can smuggle extra things in a way that doesn't get in the way of the users. Next we've got Mr. Fani Pandrangi, who also has a presentation, I think. So a big hand.
Thank you.
All right, folks. My name is Fani Pandrangi, and I'm the Chief Product Officer at Key. And my presentation, I go into a little bit more detail about, how these smart city services are going to be made and what are the considerations, over there. So a little bit about me first, so that you have some context about where I'm coming from and the points that I'm about to make. make more sense. At the moment, I'm the Chief Product Officer at Key, and before that, I've worked on various platforms. I've always been a product guy, and all of these companies I work with, most of the time I've been doing either product management or product development, and pretty much everything has been a platform of one form or the other, in enterprise software, mobile platforms, and then now IoT platform that we created at Key. And I'm originally from Hyderabad, and I went to Osmania University. Then I went to the U.S., Oregon State, and MBA at Berkeley, and so on and so forth. Here's my contact information. Please reach out. This is only like a 5 or 7 minute presentation, so I'm sure you'll have more questions and comments for me later. So that's my information. Just to add a little bit more about context, Key is basically a IoT platform company, and our customers are basically device manufacturers and solution developers in the IoT space. And the platform basically allows you to, if you're a device manufacturer, it allows you to make your device smart, meaning you're adding some smart services to go along with the device. So for example, if your device is a thermostat or a camera or something, there are usually additional services that you want to add for consumers to consume the smartness of the device. So a camera taking a picture or a video clip, when a motion event happens, the smart service associated with that could be a cloud DVR, which is actually storing all these pictures, and then maybe doing some additional analytics, things like that. And the way that service is consumed by consumers is through a smartphone. An app gives them notifications, they look at the events, they swipe through, and they get what motion event it is and things like that. So that's just an example. But pretty much most IoT solutions have this pattern where there's the device, there's the cloud service, and then there are apps. To address that, we've created this platform, and it has these 3 layers. The agent layer sits inside the device firmware. The core backend provides all the backend services, and then there's analytics, and then there are APIs to create various apps and services, and so on and so forth. And the platform is deployable as both a public cloud, it is deployed, and also in private cloud environments. And we've also developed a very strong ecosystem of partners to help you manufacture, distribute your devices, because at the end of the day, your device could be the smartest or the best device out there, but if you don't have a channel to sell, it's a problem. And the same thing applies to manufacturing as well. So you might have really hit it out of the park with your prototype, but all of a sudden there's demand, and you need to scale from 1,000 units of that device to 1 million. Who is your manufacturing partner? Can they actually do that? So we realize that just giving you a platform and saying, hey, you can do whatever you want with it, is not going to help for device manufacturers. Because they do whatever that they've been doing, whether it is bulbs or cameras or thermostats or whatever, they do that quite effectively. But for the rest of the smartness, they need a platform like this. So that's why we built this platform. We've been around as a key, as an entity since 2007.
Can I just?
Yeah.
We've been reminded that we've actually got lunch coming up, and we need to really move swiftly.
Yeah.
So that's. Everyone's been very good. We have a long set of very eminent people. So if you could focus really on the key issues, that would be fantastic for us.
So the company has a lot of lineage, and we're headquartered in Tokyo. I'm based in the Valley and drive product from there, and so on and so forth. So with this context, let me kind of provide you my points of view about smart cities and how they can be implemented. So first of all, as I'm glad that a couple of speakers have made this point. It's not just about the infrastructure. It's about people, and it's about people readiness to adopt these smart city services. So, on the left, you have these really streamlined, there are lanes on the left side and also on the right side here. But, on the right side, the car is right in the middle of the lane. It's not in any of the lanes. So are the people ready? And if they're not ready to consume smart city services, why? This is something that we have to first of all address before we go into the nitty-gritty about technology, standards, protocols, and things like that. There might be several reasons for not being ready, and we have to address them. Cloud-based platforms are the key. I'm talking about this, my point of view is not just because I'm a cloud platform vendor, but in general for the smart city use cases, you have disparate departments or governmental agencies actually deploying various kinds of sensors and devices and collecting data. But as someone mentioned, if they're done in a very siloed way, then you probably get visibility from this data, visibility from this data, but you don't have holistic visibility. And maybe there is some wisdom to be gained by actually combining these together. So from that standpoint, having the data in one place, standardizing on some sort of a cloud platform, or at the very least having APIs that you can tie together is pretty important. And from an interoperability standpoint also, this kind of approach makes a lot of sense. Just to reinforce, silos won't work. As the previous speaker or a couple of speakers mentioned, you cannot, even if you are starting with a particular smart city service, like garbage collection or whatever it might be, you have to think about it being just a service that will interoperate or at least is discoverable and somebody can read data, make calls, things like that in technical terms. Think of it as just a service that you're offering and there are consumers that you don't know of at the moment, but tomorrow another smart city service might want to consume these. So silos won't work. Think of interoperability right from the beginning and build your services that way. So we've been kind of using this term smart cities, but in reality, these are many smart services, so that goes without saying, whether it is smart lighting, parking, whatever, there is that, but there is also, you cannot build a smart city without actually building many smart layers, right? Smart buildings is a great starting point. If you think about it, there are lots of places in US where people are thinking about smart lighting because that saves a lot of money. Buildings, especially office buildings and malls, they just spend a ton of money on lighting. So now people are talking about power over Ethernet. So make that lighting, the whole function instead of the building infrastructure issue, it becomes an IT issue. And there are lots of sensors that can detect proximity, that can detect presence and things like that, and either turn on, turn off, make various changes to the lighting. It's an IT issue. That's a huge paradigm shift from being like an infrastructure or a building issue. You put that in the hands of the IT guy who he's also actually maintaining your mail and all of this kind of stuff. That's very powerful. So think of smart cities as a huge umbrella, but there are all these different services that you can start with, parking, lighting, and things like that. Citizen adoption needs really careful thought. We are talking about like how this will go, all of the technology and protocols and everything aside, assuming that we are launching smart cities, how are actual citizens participating? What's their participation? What's their interface to these smart cities? And how are you knowing that they're actually using these? Mobile phones and smartphones have been pretty prevalent. So that could be a nice way in which you make certain smart city services available, like parking, for example. And the one thing that I want to mention here is that if you talk to like mobile app developers, they're all about user acquisition, they're all about user engagement, they're all about user retention. As a smart city owner or a smart city initiative owner, you got to think along the same lines. You have to engage the audience. If the city residents, if the citizens are not adopting these services, then obviously they won't be successful. Yeah, the last slide. everyone talked about analytics, but okay, having an analytics platform is important. But my question is, do you have the metrics? Do you know what you're trying to measure? Okay, there are tons of analytics platforms, including ours. But a lot of times when I talk to people, okay, what is it you're trying to measure? They're scratching their head because that's not something that they've thought about. They thought about, oh, I'll build this whole thing, but why? What are you trying to measure? What are you trying to improve? So, and then one point that's very important is technology is not the problem. There are platforms, there are protocols like CoAP and MQTT technologies and everything. The real problem is identifying and prioritizing, these smart city initiatives. So with that, I'll stop. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a real challenge. We've got such great people, such a short amount of time. Now it's next to Mr. Shiv Kaushik.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I won't take much time. I think most of the things have been said. Let me introduce myself. My name is Shiv Kaushik. I'm the country manager for a British company called Cyan Technology Limited. It's based in Cambridge, and we are around 45 people. In India, we are around 10 people. What we do, we are basically a wireless mesh company. We have created a software platform and a hardware platform for smart metering and smart lighting. Having said that, I think most of the speakers have talked about the building blocks of the smart cities. What we passionately believe is that the power specifically and lighting are the key building blocks of a smart city. So we are not saying that we can address all the problems of the smart city, but at least if you have a good communication system which can address your smart metering requirements and smart lighting requirements. So we have two products. One is smart metering and smart lighting. How it works, that one of our communication modules fits into the meter or light bulb, and we have a DCU, data concentrator unit, which is also installed on a field near some pole and can connect with 50 meters or maybe 200 lights on a street, and then the data comes back to our server. So we have a head-end software, we have the data concentrator unit and the modules which fits into the meter or any lighting equipment. And this is what we do. This is what our core strength has been. Cyan has been present in India last 4 years. We have deployed approximately 15 odd pilots in India. We are doing 3 large projects in India. One is with Tata Power Mumbai, where we are installing around 5,000 smart meters. But we are doing the first smart grid project in India called from CESE Mysore. So that is the first out of the 14 smart grid pilot projects which were announced by the government. We are doing the first one. Rest of the projects have not been awarded yet. So there around 22,000 smart meters would be deployed. So this will, if you look at the complete India's potential for smart metering, we have around 200 million smart meters, meters installed in the country. And close to, let's say, 30% of the consumers are not even metered. So that means there is a potential of around 300 to 350 million number of smart meters in India. And I think there is a lot of focus going on the smart lighting. Delhi itself is going to replace around 500,000 street lights in next 3 to 4 years. So there is a big potential. I think the companies, small companies from different part of the Europe, I think they're coming, and I think India definitely welcome them. And there is a lot of potential for these companies as well as for their solutions to be sold in India. So Cyan is definitely doing its part. We have developed this technology last 10 years. We are listed in London Stock Exchange, and still it's a startup company because this technology is evolving. There are no key standards. I think people talk about standards. I think our vision is that we want to create that complete thing should be interoperable. I mean, today we announced that, our technology is a meter agnostic. The biggest challenge when you go into the depth of each applications, what comes is, for example, I'll just focus 2 minutes on smart metering. The biggest challenge comes is the protocols. The way the communication is handled in a meter, in India, let's say around there are 10 meter manufacturers, each having different protocols. So how do you communicate? So we need to create a standard wherein they communicate it with one particular protocol. So we created a protocol called Open Meter Protocol. We say that it could become an Android of meters. But I think it's a very difficult task to bring the ecosystem together. I think there are a lot of things happening in the country in terms of how these smart metering should happen. So smart city is definitely a very good concept, but I think let's start building up small things. So that's it from my side. You can reach out to me through the organizer. So that's it, and I would like to take any questions if in future you have.
We won't have time, but probably in the break. Thank you very much indeed.
Actually, I have to leave, so maybe
okay.
After the presentation.
But when do you have to leave?
As soon as possible.
Okay. Right. Okay. Let's move on quickly. Thank you. So it's now Mr. Tarun Kumar Bansal. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and I'm under a lot of pressure to finish it in time. Yeah, so just to introduce myself, I'm a biologist by qualification, so which makes it odd one out. But then I have been in the intellectual property field for around 10 years, and that has been my expertise. And that's what I have applied to smart cities and IoT and M2M. So I'll try to make this session more like a quiz contest. So let's see how it goes. So smart and innovative go hand in hand. So I'll look at how prepared we are to be smart. And I'll start with 3 sentences that patents and IP are the best lead indicators about state and future of the technology, a country or a company. And 90% of the information which is published in patents is never published anywhere else. So they are a very essential source of knowledge. And lastly, patent publication is generally the first time when a technology becomes public. So it becomes even more important than we always focus that what's going on around the world by looking at IP and patents. So I did a patent study in this field, and I have some observations from there. So the first observation is there are over 150,000 patents related to various aspects of IoT and M2M, which is a huge number. But when it comes to India, we only have around 10,000 patents, and out of them only around 900 patents are filed by Indian companies, and everything is owned by the MNCs and foreign companies. And another interesting thing is 50% of all these patents were filed within last 5 to 7 years. So we can see how we are moving and how quickly the innovations are progressing. Now, I just want to ask you, who do you think is the company which is leading the innovation in IoT and M2M? So any guesses from the audience? Because you are all knowledgeable people in this field. Anyone? But then, yeah, any names? Okay, yeah, so I was expecting Google, but then the thing is Google does not even figure in top 20 when it comes to IoT and M2M. And yeah.
I think the way India is changing in last 10 years or so. I've been going to a couple of management colleges as a guest faculty. I found, earlier people aim was which company is hiring you, either Pepsi, Coke or Citibank. Now today, in the first year itself, they discuss what are you trying to build up. So this entrepreneurship is coming up.
Yeah.
And I think the next wave in next 2 decades, I'm pretty sure that the next wave of innovation is going to come from India.
Yeah, I hope so.
And believe me, I think the kind of companies have been started in Bangalore or Gurgaon or all these places. I think there is a lot of innovation is happening. Today it is not visible.
Yeah.
But a lot of entrepreneurs, whether they have worked in other companies, but the next wave of innovation is going to come from this part.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, so the list as per the patent goes like the top company currently is LG. So LG has the highest number of patents in this field, followed closely by Ericsson and Qualcomm. There are some other companies like KT Corporation, and you'll be surprised that Nokia figures at in top 5 companies, which are actually building in IoT and M2M. So we thought Nokia is dead, but that's not the case. Then we also have Somfy, IBM, Samsung, and there are 2 very dangerous companies, InterDigital and ETRI. So if you know these companies, so they are not operating in the market, they're just having some good patents, and they'll just go and sue people if they start using their technology. So it's a very litigation-friendly market since the beginning, so we have to be very careful before we actually get into any technology transfer and implementations. Yeah, and any guesses which top country is leading this entire race into IoT and M2M? So yeah, so answers are right. So China closely followed by Korea and US, and then you have Japan, which is actually in the top 4. Then you have other countries like Israel, which is a very small country but always leads the innovation. You have Australia, Russia, and other European countries, and even Brazil and South Africa are much ahead of India. So which is a dangerous situation. Now somebody will say that
here's a complacent country. We are very complacent. Accommodating people.
नहीं, we are not complacent. मेरे को ये लगता है कि हम लोग बिजनेसमैन हैं, हम साइंस की तरह से सोचते ही नहीं, हम सिर्फ ये सोचते हैं कि इसमें पैसा कहाँ है. हाँ, मतलब हम लक्ष्मी के पीछे भागते हैं, सरस्वती को भूल के. Which is not a good thing. Yeah. So and somebody will say that number of patents does not matter. I mean, somebody can hold lots of patents and it will not matter. So I also did some analysis on quality of patents and who leads in quality of patents. Yeah. So the company that leads in quality of patents is Microsoft, followed by InterDigital. So InterDigital is developing good technologies, or it is buying good technologies. It has a good aim, and it will just go and sue people once the technology becomes very, very competitive. Then some other companies are IBM, Nokia, and Somfy with very good quality of patents. As I said, it's a very litigation-friendly domain, and we have to be very careful. Most acquisitions in this domain, so Cisco is acquiring a lot of companies, Google is acquiring, so all of them are triggered by patents and IP. So some of the famous ones are 3 billion acquisition of Nest by Google. Another one was 2.5 billion of CSR by Qualcomm. So startups are playing a very important role in the domain. And just to highlight on the role of startups in this domain, Apple launched a HomeKit, but it has to do so in conjunction with companies like iHome, Skybell, August, Kwikset, etc. And they couldn't do it on their own. And so we have to actually think that startups have a very important place in this ecosystem. The area with the most activity, so where is the most activity in IoT M2M when it comes to innovations? So there are 3 areas people are focusing on when it comes to technology. So the biggest concern is wireless network resource management. So people are trying to figure out solutions, followed by communication protocols, as somebody just mentioned, and the control systems. The application areas which are being targeted mostly by these companies, so these include home security is on the top, followed by healthcare, followed by transportation. Now, unlike popular perception, when you actually break it into individual components of smart city like water management, energy management, and let's say transport and healthcare, it is not the tech giants like LG and Google and others who are leading the way. And it is still the core companies who are actually taking the innovations forward. So we have to understand that it is the core companies who understand that domain, and it cannot be left to the tech companies to actually take that domain forward. So if, for example, we talk about transport segment, so who do you think will be leading the innovations in this domain? Any guesses again? No, as I said, so tech giants are not doing it. So it's the core companies. So the top company here is General Motors, followed by Toyota, Hyundai, Daimler, Boeing, Honda, and Volkswagen. So there are few tech companies who figure in top 20, but there are only 3 notable ones, LG, Hitachi, and Bosch. Similarly, if you, and Google does not figure in top 50 in transport segment, although we keep talking about driverless cars and autonomous cars, and we always think that Google is the next wave, which is not the case if you talk about the real innovations. Similarly, in energy and electricity, the top innovation, you'll be surprised to know this one, and I think this is the most surprising fact. In the energy and electricity segment, which company do you think would be leading the innovation worldwide? Any other guesses? Electricity, if we talk about. So yeah, ABB and GE figure at 2 and 3, but number 1 is still the State Grid Corporation of China. So, and then 4th, 5th, and 6th are also like China Electric Power Research Institute, and the 5th one is Shanghai Municipal Electric Power. So it's not only the private sector, it's also the government sector that has to actually focus on their core areas if they really want to develop India into the next IoT and M2M. And a lot of universities are also playing a strong role, while organizations like Bank of America are supporting, Bank of America figures in top 10 in almost all sectors. So they are actually investing a lot in these areas. Now, coming to India, situation is too radical. Who do you think will be the top player in IoT and M2M innovations in India? Any guesses again? Yeah, it cannot be compared to the global scenario, but any guesses who it could be? Pardon? So that's correct. So the top players in this area are TCS and Infosys. And so go to any domain. You look through the sectors and TCS and Infosys.
This is about patent filing?
Patent filing, yes. Yeah. So, and then toply followed by HCL and Wipro. So this indicates that we are still not in the game and doing just the platform IT and applications, and that too not too innovatively, because we are not compared to even the software companies outside India, except for TCS, which might match up a bit. Some of the only exceptions to this are SUCAM. SUCAM actually has good patent portfolio in power management. Then you have some companies like L&T. You also have Mahindra & Mahindra, Ashok Leyland, and Tata Motors. And then you have some institutes like, even Konkan Railways has top patent filing when it comes to transport segment in India. So that's a good thing to actually note. Then you have CSIR, IITs, IISc, DRDO, DIT also holding very small number of patents in this area.
Are you talking of Indian patents or global patents?
Global patents. Global patents.
Indian organizations?
Indian organizations having patents globally.
What is the source of this?
I did this own research, so I actually figured out, on my own. So, yeah. So this has been my expertise. This is through the patent research. So all the patents are available and you just figure in, key in some parameters and get this information.
It's official data, it's not like a Google research.
Yeah. So it's something I synthesized on my own, yeah. And the future is further sad because there are patents employing over 1,000 Indian origin inventors. And if you talk about Indian filings also, they are being dominated by the Indian Innovation Center of Samsung, Indian Innovation Center of Bosch. So our companies are not even using our own manpower. So that is even sadder. There are few individual inventors that figure on the top rather than Indian companies using them properly. Now, as the standardization becomes a success, and
yes,
so okay, and the standards will become a reality, we'll face a situation which we are facing in the smartphone area, where everybody is coming and suing, let's say Micromax and others, that you are infringing on our standards. So it is the time when we have to actually come up and we have to make our mark in actually defining the global standards. And another problem that will come is if we keep importing the technologies and if we keep ignoring the innovations, our data, our private data will become a toy in the hands of the multinational companies, like it is already in the in the hands of Facebook, WhatsApp, and others. So yeah, I have a lot to say, but I'll just cut it down. If you have any more questions, so you can connect to me. I have many more insights into the specific segments that can actually help some of the players who are actually trying to have their foot in the door in this area. Yeah, so.
Fantastic, thank you. Really helpful, focused, practical ideas there. And now finally, our final speaker is Mr. Gauri Shankar. Thank you.
Hello everybody. I'm going to tell you two stories again. This is about two children. The first one is Malini. Malini studies in her 5th grade. A couple of months back, she came to me with a broken Bluetooth module. Shankar uncle, it is not working. I'm not able to hear anything. It belongs to my dad's mobile, something we can do. My problem is, I have an iPod. I'm not allowed to use a mobile phone. I want to play the songs, but something we have to fix. I also have another headset. This is working fine with my iPod. I want to connect these two things. She asked this question. I was shell shocked. what I realized was she is aware that there is something going on between without wire, and it got a name called Bluetooth, and sound is not coming. So to get the sound, there is a headphone available. Whether it is possible to connect these two things or not, she is in her 5th grade. Nothing more, nothing less. And her brother was there next to her, 1st standard. Will sound come? Will sound come? He was keep on asking. So I said, okay, I said, the internals, there will be like a green wire and a blue wire. You can break it a little bit, cut it over here, try to connect, whether it is working or not. She went back. After a day, she came back, it was working. This curiosity is something very important. My next child is on his 1st standard, Narsimha, my friend's son. We guys are M2M enthusiasts, okay? We order devices and then wires and then Arduino boards, through Amazon. Amazon made it very easy nowadays, we don't need to go to the gully shop and, search for the right components. Everything is available. And of course, Alibaba is there. We can import from China as well. So we ordered these things, and then, these wires were scattered around the house, and my friend is new to M2M, and this guy want to do something. This folk, Narsimha, in his 1st standard was looking at us. He did not speak. And we had a half-an-hour discussion. I went back home. Then my friend called. Shankar, Narsimha is putting pressure on me. We have to do it. We have to integrate this immediately. Basically, this is a relay, and we want to switch on a light with a relay from our software program or through the middleware. He has no idea about what they are, but he wants to see the result. I went back. And I sat with my friend, and this guy was again, sitting in the bed, watching. He did not speak a single word in front of me, but I could see in his father's eyes, okay, he wants to show some result to his son. This curiosity is built in our processor, which got, extreme power. We cannot compare to any machine or sensor around over here. And how we are going to feed this curiosity? Curiosity leads to innovation. Innovation leads to the invention of smart things. Eventually, I think the topic is whether we can realize the smart city dream or not. It will happen when we feed a proper information through open data and democratizing the knowledge to Malinis and Madhavs and Narasimhas. We will be there. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely fantastic. I need to check. Do we have time for any questions? We do. We do. We have a very kind, generous person. Okay. So could you stand up and give your name, background, and quickly, succinctly your question? Thank you.
Otanu here from Altix Innovations. All right. So I started off yesterday by asking the first question, which was, are we ready? Are we as people ready? I built a smart parking solution and for an Indian city, and I was told that you cannot get money out of the people, but you can probably sell it to the police and monitor parking in illegal areas. Right. So I'm going to ask this question to the panel, that do we start to look at smart enforcement even if it is in size 6 fonts?
Absolutely. Okay, who would like to answer?
Actually, it is already happening. In Chennai, there is a project of using RFID tags for different applications like parking and also waste bin collection and so on. So many municipal corporations are already adopting this kind of technologies.
Anyone else? Yeah.
I can volunteer an answer from what I know. There is this general concept among the smart city folks that smart parking is probably the first way to get money out of everything. People are reluctant to pay for every other service, but smart parking is one area where people globally are supposed to pay, and they have acknowledged that this is one way most of these projects can be funded. So enforcement, absolutely yes, but I don't see why there should be a problem in people, I mean, in somebody buying your solution, implementing it from a city. This is from what I know.
I think the question is about like, are we incentivizing people by providing smart parking solutions, or are we actually using these solutions to penalize them, right? Like, you know, if they're, not parked properly and things like that. And it totally depends on the context, as to which one will actually work. I can tell you, like, trying to find parking in San Francisco is just next to impossible. And even if you find it, it's like $30 for an hour or two. So over there, there are lots of these solutions now that are getting deployed. It's really, if this solution allows me to find parking and it tells me where to go so that I can find parking, that's very valuable to people, in spite of the cost. So over there, I think that'll work. In other cities, again, it totally depends on the context. What is, what the general public will be able to adopt. So, it's TBD. Depends on totally on the context.
I mean, smart parking is just an example. Right? What I wanted is a bigger context of smart enforcement. Right? Does it go hand in hand with smart cities?
Well, one additional comment to add about smart enforcement. One thing that we are seeing, there are some cities that have deployed wearable cameras. Like Michael is wearing a wearable camera. He's live logging, basically. It takes pictures every 30 seconds or whatever. So police are wearing those. So from an enforcement standpoint, that has been useful, but there has also been certain criticism about that, privacy, and like a lot of issues around that. So all of these need to be worked out still.
I just have a very brief submission and very humble submission. Why we have been debating about smart cities, smart villages, okay, and we are not really covering the comprehensiveness of the thing. Why don't we simply call it smart, green, and secure community? Why are we, somebody says we should first focus on villages, we should first focus on cities, urbanization, rural shift. I think if we talk about people, if people are centric, why do not we simply change the theme or flow to smart, green, and secure? Security is something which we are not really covering properly.
Narang, let me address that. To begin, I'm sure others will have their own opinion. Where does money in India come from?
Smartness.
Cities. Come on. Money in India comes from its cities. I mean, that's what is the biggest contributor to tax. 85% of our tax revenues come from 15% of the population. And the 15% of this population resides in cities, not in villages. So the driver for all of this, and the reason why smart cities is a purely economic driver. Yeah, I mean, next comes the village. I mean, it's not. I mean, there are other issues too. I mean, going by the fact that, by 2030, a significant population, and that's why smart cities are being taken up by the government of India. By 2030, almost 60%, 70% of our population is expected to move to urban areas, and the challenges that are upon these urban areas are far more than it can handle or it has been thought of. So that is why, in many ways, smart cities are up on the government.
More relevant, you mean to say?
I wouldn't say more relevant.
Then, my point was, see.
Because the challenges that cities have... Let me...
Okay. One or two other comments and then we'll have to close.
Yeah, actually, you are right. Basically, it is smart infrastructure, that's all. And communities becoming smarter using that infrastructure. So basically, broadband and Wi-Fi and RFID, in addition to mobile technologies are anyway coming up on their own. So integrating these new infrastructural facilities with the mobile phones, which people already adopted in a big way, smartphones, that will automatically lead to smartness, whether it's village or a town or city, or it doesn't matter.
Well, I don't have a specific comment, but I think the readiness between cities and villages is different. So probably you need little different solutions for both, and you need to look them slightly differently.
The very first India IoT use case that I've seen, that they were trying to use our platform was actually a smart village use case. Shrimp farming, they were trying to make a sensor that goes into the pond and monitor, various parameters and notify the farmers. So, we can call it smart cities, but, there are problems everywhere. So, whoever has the domain expertise will try to solve those problems. And this guy happens to be in a village, very technology savvy, and he was building that. So we can call it whatever, but, ultimately we have to solve problems. We have to prioritize and solve problems.
Good. Well, let's close it there. I think we've had a fantastic view of some of the practical issues involved in IoT, machine-to-machine and smart cities. I think we've seen that it's very much about people and solving practical problems of people and not focusing on the technology. And I think once we do that, then it becomes easier to move from the branding sort of thing of smart cities and rather than to sort of work out where does a city finish and a city end and what do you do about travel to work areas and all the rest of it. It's actually saying, well, this is one way of bringing together the fact that how can machine to machine, how can technology make a real difference to the way our society works and lives its lives? And what kind of solutions can we be offering that are really useful to people? We haven't had time to ask questions, but you've seen the panel, you've seen their expertise, grab them over lunch, and thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Good.
Thank you, Michael. And just to end it up, I request Mr. Dinesh and Sarma to felicitate all the speakers. I invite first Mr. CSR Prabhu. Mr. Michael Malkin. Mr. Bipin Pradeep Kumar. Mr. Zura Lampe. Mr. Fani Panrangi. Mr. Shiv Kaushik. And Mr. Tarun Kumar Bansal.